All right, now all our DTOs are done. We have created all our DTOs. Now it's time to go back to the API project and creating our services. So inside this API, I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call it services. And inside this, I'm going to create my first service. Let's call it auth service. This is for login and registration. All right. Inside this, first thing we will access our data context. I'm going to create constructor, and then data context. We'll inject this data context here. Let's call it just context. This is the convention I follow. Create an assign field with underscore on the private read only variable side. Now here we are going to have first user registration. So let's do this public async task, and from here what we are going to return, we'll see. So the basic is API result from our DTOs. Here we'll say register async, and we will be getting register DTO as a parameter to this method. All right. Now, first thing we validate if the user ID or email which user is trying to register with, if it already exists in our database. So we'll say if await context dot users dot as no tracking, or let's do this with as no tracking because we are not tracking. Wherever we will need tracking, we will explicitly use as tracking. So we will disable the tracking on global level for our entity framework data context. Okay, it enhances the performance. So here how we can do this in our data context, we can simply say override, and we can override our own configuring method. And here we can say options builder dot use query tracking behavior, and here we can say query tracking behavior dot no tracking. All right. Now this as no tracking is default. Wherever we will need tracking, then we will simply say as tracking explicitly. All right. So context dot user dot, here we'll say any async if u dot email is equals dto dot email. If that is the case, that means this email is already registered. From here we'll simply return API result dot fail, then error message. So we'll say user exists. Now you see what is the benefit of having those static factory methods. So API result dot fail. If I have not defined this, then from here what I should have been done, new API result, then false, and then this message user exists. So this one is easier to write. Okay. All right. If that is not the case, we'll come here. That means user does not exist. This is a new user. First, we can have our try catch here to handle proper exception, etc. Here. Let's create the user. So we'll create user var user equals new user. This is our entity. And our entity needs ID, which will be automatically generated. Email, we have dto.email. Then name, we have dto.name. Then we have photo path, photo URL. This I said that we'll have a separate call for to save this user information. Then we have password hash. So we need to hash this password for this user. We will generate this hash, and we are going to use iPassword hasher for this. So we are going to inject iPassword hasher, which comes from Microsoft ASP.NET Core Identity. And this is a generic type where we provide the user type. So we have this user entity for our type. So we'll say password hasher. Let's have this create an assign field with underscore. With the latest update, somehow the this option, this setting is not working, by which I was able to add this underscore by automatic convention, but it is not working. Okay, we'll do it manually for this. Now we have this password hasher ready. Now from this password hasher, we can simply say password hasher dot hash password, and here we can provide a user object, which is this user object which we just created, and then the plain password which we have in this dto.password, this one. All right, it is going to return us a string which is going to be a password, hashed password. So we'll say user dot password hash equals this. Now our hashed password is also ready. After this, we'll say context dot users dot add. We'll add this user, and after that we'll simply say await context dot save changes. Now if this is ready, this is done, we will simply return API result dot success. If that is not the case, from here we'll return error. So we'll say return API result dot fail and ex dot message. Although we should not do this, we should have this exception logged in somewhere. So log exception, and then we should actually return some user friendly display message. So something like maybe normal error in user creation, and then on the basis of this logged exception you can perform your debugging or fixing the bugs. This is, but because we are working on this in this demo sample, so we'll simply send ex.message and we'll see what the error is and we'll try to fix it. All right, save it. Now what I think, we will have a separate call to save the user photo. So in that case, we should know for what user we are saving the photo for. So we need to have this user's ID. Okay, so for this, it should return API result of UUID, the user ID. Okay, now the return calls will be changed to API result of GUID.fail, API result.GUID.success, API result GUID.fail. Now this success, it needs one GUID data. So this is going to be our user.id. Now this user object. How this works, when we say context.save changes async and we are adding this entity, so it will automatically assign the newly generated ID to this user object. So we will have the user ID here, which we are returning to the client. All right. Now on the basis of this thing, user, or we will be able to add the photo for this user. Okay, let's work on this. Here we'll say public async task. Now this should return just API result. We can say upload photo async. Now it will have user ID and our file photo. We'll say iForm file photo. All right. First thing, we'll verify if we actually has this, if we have this user with this user ID. We'll say var user equals await context dot user dot as tracking. Now we will track the user, because we will modify, or we have two approach. If we are using as tracking, then we can directly call save changes, and if we are not calling as tracking, then we can update and then use the save changes async, so it will automatically update it. So let's keep this as tracking. We will add our own tracking. Basically we'll call update method explicitly. All right, context dot user dot, here we can say find async. We can use find async method. So we'll say just pass the primary key for this user, which is this user ID. Now if this user is null, Okay, let's use user is null. Then we'll simply return API result dot fail, user does not exist or user not found. All right. If that is not the case, that means we have user. So now we need to save user photo. Okay. So for this, let's create a helper method here. We are going to use this for other things as well, or maybe we can have it in some separate class as well if you want to. Right now, let's have it here only. Private async task save user photo async. Okay, and here we will have our user ID. We can have user ID if we want, or just image. Let's use iPhone file only. Photo. All right. Here, where we want to save it, that is the first thing. So we will save it inside our API only. We'll have our triple W root folder. Let's create that folder first. We'll add new folder www root. Inside this, we are going to have our files. So we'll say target path. It would be path.combine. Now we need to access this triple W root folder. So in ASP.NET Core, how we can access it? We can actually inject I web host environment. We'll call it web host environment. Private read only field with underscore. And then here we can say underscore web host environment dot web root path. This is triple W root. Then inside this, we'll have one uploads folder. Inside this uploads folder, we are going to have images folder. And inside this, I guess we'll have user. So this is proper folder structure. You are free to use whatever structure you want to have. This is totally up to you. Okay, so we have this target path. After this, we'll quickly verify if we already have all these folders. If not, we'll create these. So we'll say if not directory dot exists this target path, or let's say target folder path. If that's not the case, then we should create this directory. Now we are good. Now what we'll do, we will store the image with a generated name. We will not use the name which came with that file, that photo. So we'll generate our own unique name using maybe GUID and current date time tick so that it is always a unique name. Okay. So for that, we will not use file name, but we will use file extension. We'll say extension. Let's get what was the extension of the photo which user has provided. Path.get extension photo.file name. Okay. After that, we'll generate a file name, new file name here. So we'll say file name, or let's say new file name. Here we are going to generate a file name. So we'll first use guid.new guid. Okay. And then let's have underscore. And then we are going to have date time dot utc now dot ticks. And after this, we are going to have our extension. So whatever extension it was, PNG file or JPG or JPEG, GI, whatever it was, we'll use the same extension here. So that files, images, metadata data does not change or anything. So we have it ready here. Now we'll have full image path or full file path now. It is going to be path.combine target folder and then new file name. Alright, now we have this full path. On the basis of this full path or on this full path, we are going to save our image. So here we'll say using file stream fs equals, we can use simple file dot create this full file path. We'll create this. Then we'll say simply await the photo dot copy to async this fs. Now we want to copy the stream from this photo which we got as a parameter here. We will copy this to this file stream, which is actually a new file got created on this target folder with this name. Okay, now we have this ready. After this, we are going to have a now from here, from this method, we should return two things. One, we should return this full file path, and second thing, we should return the this newly generated files URL, which would actually be, let's say, uh, file URL, or let's say photo URL. It should be the current API's domain, which is actually API domain, which is, we say, base URL, something like this, and then comma, we need not comma slash, we need to have these things: uploads, images, users, because here is going to be the image inside webroot folder, webroot path. It should use these things: uploads slash images, right? It was images, then slash users, then slash the file name. So this new file name, this is going to be the complete URL. All right, now this domain base URL, now I'm having this fully qualified. I'm not having this as just have this URL generated on the UI only, by which we can say, because we will know that what API we are pointing to, and on the basis of we will use this. But I'm making it future proof, so maybe tomorrow we don't want to store our images on our file system. Maybe we want to move this to some third party storage, some CDN or anywhere, so that we can directly go to the database and modify the URLs, or maybe directly modify these from here. So the consumer the consumer can directly access the photo URL, and they can directly use it without checking or doing if we are having maybe some domain or not. If we are not having the domain URL, then we should use the API URL. So all those things. That's why storing the entire URL in the database makes sense here. All right, now we need to access this domain base URL. So for this, what we'll do, we can get it from our app settings. So inside our app settings in our API project, I'm going to add one key here. We'll say domain. The name is up to you. Whatever you want, you can have it. Now what domain we are having here, if we quickly check properties, launch settings, we are actually using this HTTPS 7091. This thing we are going to add here. Save it. Now we can access this domain in our auth service. So what we can do, we can simply inject I configuration, and on the basis of this configuration, from this configuration object, we can simply access that key. Okay, so here for the domain, we'll say var domain URL, we'll say underscore configuration dot, we have a get value generic method which will give us a string. Here we just need to provide the key, which is domain. Now we have this domain URL. This we are going to have here. Okay, now there might be a case we will have double slash, because what if someone added this slash here in the app settings.json? So let's handle this case as well. So here on this get value domain, what we'll do, we'll say simply trim end and slash. So from the end, just trim slash if it exists there. If it is not, then it will not do anything and will add slash. But if it is there, this trim end will remove that slash and we are adding one slash. So there will be always one slash which will work. All right. So I guess we are good with this now. We have photo URL. Let's rename or new file name or file to photo only. So it's better to have the same uh, name for this new file, a new photo name. Instead of full file path, we'll say new photo path and we have photo URL. Yes. So from here, we want to return photo URL and full photo path, these two things. For this, let's use value tuple here. So here we'll say task of it returns two things. One is string photo path. Second is photo URL. Okay, so from here we'll return full photo path, comma photo URL. Now we can use this save user photo async method here in upload photo async. Right? Let's use this. But here we should handle the, the error, right? Or maybe that we should handle inside this or inside the, let's handle in the caller. We'll have try catch and here we will call this method await save user photo async. We need to pass iForm file photo to this. It is going to give us two things. We are going to store these things here. So we'll say photo path and photo URL equals this thing. And in the catch, we'll simply have same tx and we should have that logging here. But right now we'll simply say API result.fail ex.message. Now we have photo path and photo URL. Now we can use these on this user object. We'll say user.photopath equals photopath. User.photo URL equals photo URL. Okay. After this, we'll simply say context dot users dot update user. Now using this, we are explicitly telling it to track this at the very end. Just track it and update it. So no need to have that. If we have been using as tracking like this, then this call is not required. But let's have explicit things. So let's not use this automatic change tracking. Then we'll say simply await context dot save changes async. And after this, we can simply return API result dot success, that the upload photo process was successful. Great. So with this, we are good with the user registration, both of the pieces of user registration. All right. Now, after this, let's quickly work on login as well. Public async task. Here we know we will return login response. We created that DTO. Login response. Let's name it login response DTO. Login response DTO. Here we'll say login async. And we will get login DTO as a parameter to this. Now first we will check if username password are correct, but because we are using password hashing, so we can't directly compare password. We what approach we need to take? We need to compare hashes. That means whatever new password we are getting, no, not new password, the password user has added in this login DTO. We'll simply generate a hash for that password and then we'll compare that hash with the existing hash. If both the hashes are correct, then we'll do this. So for this process, the iPassword hasher, it has a way. It has already given our us the methods to compare those things. So we are going to use those. Great. So for this, we need to get the user on the basis of the username. So we'll say await context dot users dot first or default async. We'll say u dot email equals dto dot email. Now, if for some reason if the user is null, that means the email is incorrect. From here, we'll simply return it should be task of API result of login response. From here, we'll return API result login response DTO dot fail. We will simply say invalid credential, or we'll say user does not exist. Now, if that's not the case, that means we have user. Now we will use the password hasher to verify the password. So it has verify hashed password method in which we need to provide user as first parameter, hashed password as second parameter, and provided password, the plain password as third parameter. Okay. Verify hashed password. First is user, second is user dot password hash, third is DTO dot password. Now it gives us this password verification result. We'll store this password verification result, and here we can check if password verification result, if this thing is not equals password verification result, which is an enum, it has failed, success, rehash needed. So we are going to use just these failed and success, but because we are using fail fast approach here, so we'll check if this is not success. We'll simply return from here with saying that incorrect password was entered. Okay, so let's invalid credential, that is for invalid credentials. That's all. Now, if we come here after this as well, then user is there, password is correct, and now we are good. Now we just need to generate JWT and return response. That is the only thing which we need to do now, right? So for generation JWT, we need to have some logic. We need to install a NuGet package. So we'll go to the API, manage NuGet packages. The package we are going to use, it will be microsoft.aspnetcore.authentication.jwt bearer. This is what we are using for our authentication. Okay, JWT authentication. It will give us methods to generate, validate JWT tokens. Let's install it. I'm installing this 900, which is the latest package. Of course, there is this error, but let's see if this was installed. Authentication JWT bearer, yes, it was installed. It automatically installs transitive dependencies. There's no dependency looks like, but we are good. All right. So auth service. Now we are here. Let's create a helper method to generate the JWT. So we'll say private string. We'll say generate JWT token for the user. Okay. So here first we'll have our list of claims for the user. What information we want in our JWT token. Okay. We are going to have a claims array. So in here, first we are going to have a claim for a user ID. For this, we are going to use claim, new claim, claim types dot name identifier, which is the unique for name identifier for unique names for unique IDs basically, and string value. So we'll have user.id.toString comma, and let's add couple of more. After this name identifier, we need name. So we'll use user.name. Then we need user email as well. So email. And then we need photo, right? So for photo, do we have any predefined type? No, right? Claim types. Avatar. No, there is no predefined type. So this is simple strings actually. You can have any string here. So let's do this. I am simply going to have a string here. We'll say just user photo URL like this. Okay, and then we'll say user dot photo URL. This is null. We'll have, because for this string is required, so token value is required. All right, now we have these claims. Now we need to generate our JWT. So for JWT generation, we need to have a couple of different things. So we'll say was JWT security token equals new JWT security token. Now inside its constructor, we have a lot of things. If you see, we have issuer, we have audience, we have list of claims, not before, expires, then signing credentials. So we are going to use the signing credentials. Okay. So let's generate signing credentials. We'll say signing credentials equals new signing credentials. Now with this signing credentials, we need to provide security key and name of the hashing algorithm. Okay. So we need to generate our security key. Now for the security key, we are going to use symmetric key. Symmetric key equals new symmetric security key. Inside this, we need to provide hash byte array of key. Okay. So this key, we need to get byte array of some security key. We need to have some secret key. We need to generate this byte array then. Var security key. We will use system.text.encoding.utf8.get bytes from this secret key. Now we have the security key which we can use inside this symmetric security key. Okay. Then we have signing credentials where we need symmetric key first, then hashing algorithm. We'll say security algorithms dot name of the algorithm. So HMAC 256. Now our signing credentials is here. So we'll say signing credentials and we'll provide a signing credential because all these are optional parameters. So we need to use the named parameters. Okay, because we are providing value for the last parameter. We need to use the named. All right, this is very default, very basic without any payload right now. We'll add payload and we'll have the security key and all. But before that, let's see how to generate token from this JWT security token. This is the token is not yet generated, or this is of type JWT security token. We need to convert it to string. So here we'll see the actual token. Let's say JWT equals new JWT security token handler. And on this instance, we have write token. Then we can provide our security token, which is our JWT security token. Now this JWT is the final JWT. Alright, now right now it is just having the bare bone security key, nothing else, no data at all. No issuer or no other information basically. We need to give it information. Here, after the signing credential, we have a lot of things. So we can provide issuer. So all these things, security, secret key, issuer, and all other things, expiration and all, we will get from the app settings. So inside app settings, let's add one more node here. We'll say JWT. Okay. And here we need to have different things. First, we'll have our issuer, which in most of the cases, it is the direct API server, which is generating the tokens. Okay. Then we can have our secret key. So this could be any long cryptographically strong key. So for me, I'm just having this random thing with lowercase, uppercase characters, special characters, numbers, and all. Okay, a very long key. Then after issuer, we have secret key. Let's say expiration as well. So we'll say expire in minutes. It's up to us how long we want our token to be valid for. Ideally, we should use JWT with refresh token. So JWT should have a very small expiration time, and we should renew JWT using refresh tokens. But for me, I'm just directly going to JWT token inside in this application. We'll have it 1 day expiration. So 1 day means for 12 hours into 60 minutes in 1 hour. So we'll say 12 into 60, 720. Okay, save it, and now we are good with our JWT. Now we can access these things. Now you have an option to use options pattern as well to get these JWT information. For me, we are already injecting this configuration, so we can get these values from here using configuration only. So for security key, we can simply say configuration dot get value of type string and the name. If you remember, for domain, we directly typed domain because it was the direct root property. But for JWT, we need to get the secret key. It is inside JWT. So the way we can reach to this, we use colon as a separators. So we'll use JWT colon secret key. JWT colon, let's copy the secret key name, secret key. Now we have the secret key. Now for issuer, this thing also we are getting from our configuration. After this, we'll have expiration. So expires. For the expires, we can say datetime dot utc now dot add minutes, then the expiration in minutes. Okay, then we need to convert it to int. Let's do this int. Okay, so these are the basic things we need, and after this, we need claims. For this, we already have this claims array here, so we can use it. Claims. What is the problem here? Claims add minutes. Oh, this one parenthesis was remaining. All right, so we are okay with this. Now let's change the names. So for issuer, the name is JWT issuer, and for expiration, we have expire in minutes. Save it, and now we are good. Our JWT token is ready, which we are returning from here. Okay, now generate JWT. So we'll simply say var JWT equals generate JWT token for this user, and then just return the response. Response will be of type this login response DTU. So we'll say var, but before that, let's generate our logged in user equals new logged in user, and it needs ID. So user.id, user.name, user.email, then user.photo URL. After that, we have our login response equals new login response DTO. First, we need logged in user, so we'll say logged in user, comma token, which is our JWT. After this, we can say return API result of type this login response DTO dot fail, sorry, dot success login response. Now our login async method is also ready. Great, it was a lot of coding. Let's see if we did everything right, or maybe we'll test everything at the very end only. Right now, let's just get the coding done for now. So I guess with this, our auth service is ready. We have login, we have registration, we have the first photo upload. All right, we are going to use this auth service, but first thing we need to add this auth service to our dependency container. So in program.cs, before builder.build, we'll say builder.services.add transient, and we are directly going to add auth service. Now we are good with our auth service. Now we'll start working on other parts.